So, what is the difference between fantasy and sci fi, and why is it important to you as a writer? There's a lot of different ways you can answer that question. I'll do my best to answer it in the next 10 minutes or so. This is Sam with another video for you, and yes, I normally like to do these live because I like the potential interaction that brings, but I am pre recording this one today. I'm going to be traveling this weekend just for a quick trip. Actually, I posted a video a while back about a friend of mine who passed away, and his service is this weekend, so I'm traveling. So I'm recording this on Thursday. I'll be leaving tomorrow, but I'll post it on Friday. But I guess by the time you see this, it's already Friday. Anyway, quick little tip, quick little conversation about the difference between fantasy and sci-fi. And let me just go ahead and spoil this. I'm not going to tell you anything that's like mind-boggling or like so profound you've never heard of it before. I'm gonna just give you some kind of basic things that will help you as a writer, but I think they'll help you understand and know your genre a little bit more too, hopefully. So I've been seeing this debate for a while. I mean, obviously it's been around for a while, but I've been seeing memes lately about fantasy versus sci-fi, and actually some of them even answer the question in a silly way, or in a funny way because they're memes. Like fantasy is when your weapons go clink clink, and sci-fi is when your weapons go pew pew. Or they'll have like some actor who's been in multiple franchises and be like, fantasy is when he looks like this, and sci-fi is when he looks like that. Just silly things. I mean, you might have seen some of those going around social media, or if you Google it, fantasy and sci-fi, different memes, then you can probably find that. So here's the thing: fantasy and sci-fi, they're hard to define, obviously, but we feel like we know them when we see them. And the reason we feel like that is, I guess my answer to this question has always been they're defined by certain tropes, certain genre trappings that, for one reason or another, have become associated with those genres. So, fantasy, you obviously have, usually either magic, either high or low magic. You can get into higher and low fantasy later. Or some form of mythical creatures, elves, wizards, dwarves, flobbits, maybe not flobbits, that kind of thing. All that stuff, dragons, maybe swords, and, not always, but often a medieval sword and castles kind of feel. That's fantasy, and we know it when we see it, and we just feel like, yeah, that's fantasy. Sci-fi, of course, has different tropes, and again, you can argue that they follow similar patterns of like the hero's journey and their plots and character types and such, but sci-fi has different genre trappings. Like instead of elves and dwarves, you have aliens and robots. Instead of a medieval world long ago, you have different planets. Sci-fi doesn't really use magic, but it uses science and advanced technology to explain a lot of things that could otherwise be called magic. And space travel, time travel, robots, all that kind of stuff falls under the broad umbrella of sci-fi. And you know this. I didn't tell you anything just now that you didn't know already. But my basic answer is each one is defined by its genre trappings and by the tropes and I guess content there that people have come to expect to find within it. Now, let me address a big question. Is there overlap between the two? Of course, yes, there is and can be. Star Wars largely uses sci-fi tropes, spaceships and aliens, but then you got this mystical element of the Force that feels more like fantasy magic. Some have called sci-fi more of a science. Some have called Star Wars more of a science fantasy, whatever that means. I won't attempt to define that term for you today. Artemis Fowl, the books, not the movie. Don't watch the movie. Read the books. The fairies use ancient magic, but they also use advanced technology. There's a combination, and of course, in shared universes like Marvel and stuff, you have places where both exist. Doctor Strange is a fantasy guy, but he exists in the same universe as the Guardians of the Galaxy, sometimes fighting side by side with them. So yes, there can be overlap. There obviously is and has been overlap between the two. And if you're writing that kind of story, then you just gotta set that up for your readers so they know about it. So I guess my advice to you as writers in dealing with this question is know what genre you're writing, and make sure your reader understands it too, because that will manage your expectations and their expectations and everything like that. And usually they do. Usually it's not hard to figure out. But if you're reading a fantasy book, a reader has certain expectations. If you're reading a sci-fi book, there's certain expectations. If you know it's going to be a blend between both, maybe your expectations are a little bit more off. But you still, I wouldn't quite say anything goes. It depends on your world building and stuff, and the parameters you set up for that world. But they should have those expectations. Let me give you a scenario to illustrate. Let's say you're watching Rings of Power, the new Lord of the Rings series, and like it or hate it, that's a different conversation. Not here to tackle that, although I've been watching it and enjoying it myself. Just indulging in a scenario. Let's say you're watching Rings of Power, and there is this character who's referred to as the Stranger, whose identity has not been revealed yet. At least I don't think so. I'm behind one episode, so I hope it hasn't been revealed yet. He kind of looks like Gandalf, and he has the beard and everything, and is friends with the hobbits, and he clearly is some kind of magical person in origin. Some people think he's either Gandalf, or if not Gandalf himself, then one of the other wizards in Gandalf's order. Let's just say, speculate on the season finale, which I guess will be out by the time I post this, but suppose that the Stranger gets pierced by an arrow or something like that somehow, and they go to tend to his wound, and underneath his skin they find wires and circuitry, and it turns out he's actually a robot created by aliens on the moon and sent to Middle Earth to scope out Middle Earth for these aliens on the moon. And you'd be like, what the heck? What is this? Yeah, that's because even though there's lots of fantastical things in the world of Middle Earth, aliens and robots and space travel are generally not part of it, have not been part of it so far, and you would know that does not fit in with the genre trappings and the expectations that you, the viewer, had of that genre. Now, could there be a story where a wizard is actually a robot? Sure, but you've got to kind of explain that in your world and make it fit in your world, and at least establish or at least hint at beforehand that robots exist in this world. So you wouldn't want a robot showing up in Middle Earth. You wouldn't want, I don't know, Aragorn showing up on in the middle of Star Wars. I mean, it's cool to joke about things like that, and joke about our favorite characters coming together. But in a real story, it doesn't really work because these are different trappings, different genres that have mostly been kept separately. Obviously, again, there's some overlap, there's some crossovers, but generally speaking, they belong to different worlds. So my advice to you as a writer, know your genre, know what you're doing with your story, know what to expect with your story, and know what your reader expects of it too. Again, fantasy is over here, sci-fi is over here. Can you blend them? Yes, but you've got to make it clear you're doing so. You've got to build your world and establish your world so that it fits these certain parameters, and so that the reader at least has some idea of what to expect from your world then. Otherwise, they might be in for some weird surprises when they get into your book. And again, I mean, some books, if you're just starting out and you don't know the world very well yet, there might be some surprises along the way. You might have some things that are big reveals of I bet you didn't know this could happen. That happens, sure. There are exceptions to this rule, but in general, you want your readers to know what they can expect from your story, because otherwise they might be disappointed and they might be surprised and it might go off in some weird ways. So, no robots in Middle Earth, no dragons in Star Wars. Okay, I guess there's a crate dragon, so bad example, but you get the point. I'm repeating myself now, so I'm going to sign off, but this is Lisa's advice. Know your genre, and know what your readers expect from that genre, so you can write it well and keep everyone happy. Okay, thanks for listening and watching. Have a great weekend. Keep writing, and may the force be with you. Bye.